Like always, today's episode is brought to you by our amazing sponsors, gluten-free diet water, premium junk clothing, Williamson wines, and Good Dudes Coffee. Gluten-free diet water. Stay hydrated with a refreshing twist, perfect for those health-conscious listeners. Premium junk clothing, for those who love to express their unique style with high-quality fashion pieces. Visit premiumjunkclothing.com and use code EverydayGSD15 at checkout. Williamson Wine, natural artesian wine from Napa and Sonoma. And last but not least, Good Dudes Coffee, veteran owned by former Navy SEAL Josh Bridges, and where every cup is brewed with passion and dedication to quality. Visit their website at gooddudescoffee.com and use discount code EverydayGSD10 for an exclusive offer. Thanks to our sponsors for supporting the show, and now let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Everyday GSD podcast. Today's special guest, Major General David Johnny Baratto.
Correct.
And you go by David or Baratto or just Major General?
No, Dave.
Just go by Dave? Okay. First of all, this is our first guest here on the Special Forces Cruise. Green Beret has taken over this ship. This is a Carnival cruise, and we are actually at sea right now. And you have a fan club over here. Your son, daughter-in-law, daughter, and wife of, I'm not going to say how many years because I don't want to date her age, but she looks like she's 35, so I'm very impressed with you, sir. I normally go over everyone's information here. Major General, you've 32 years retired. I've got a list of stuff here, and that's actually, if you can look at this is 4 pages of accolades and things you've done in the military in your career. I don't want to start with this because I think the show will be over. So you know what? I'm just going to jump into it, and I want you to tell us your story. And obviously, we're on the Everyday GSD podcast, which stands for Get Shit Done. And you've been getting shit done since, you were born in 1941, so you've been doing this for a while, right? So you're a little 12-year-old kid growing up where?
And actually, I grew up.
Can you get a little closer to the microphone? We can move this to you, too.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Really, my time growing up was really in Klamath Falls, Oregon. Yes.
Okay.
Until I was 8 years old. Then we moved to Mount Shasta, California. But my interest in the military began earlier than that.
Okay, earlier than 8 years old.
Well, yes.
Okay. So your dad bought you a G.I. Joe, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to do that.
No, actually, it was my sister. My sister got married.
Okay.
Because her newly married husband was drafted into World War II.
Okay. World War II.
Yeah.
All right.
And so I went to the wedding, which was in Fresno, California, and he gave me his military hat, and he was Army.
Right.
And so I sort of got enamored with that hat and carried it for many years, and that's really where my interest started. Then I had a cousin who went in the Navy at the same time, also drafted.
We won't hold that against him.
Yeah. And then I had another cousin who went in, and he went in the Navy, and he was actually a commander of a submarine, and he went to Annapolis. So then I knew something about the military academies.
Right. Yeah. So at what age did you enlist, or what? Walk me through that process.
Well, I was lucky to have a role model in high school.
All right.
And this role model went to West Point.
Right.
And he was captain of the track team, captain of the basketball team. He was an honor student, obviously.
Well, and just to say that you went to West Point is that's the gold star right there.
Yeah.
Like, let's not kid ourselves, right?
And so I started to model after him.
Okay.
And competed for an appointment. Got an alternate appointment, so I had to dig a little deeper, and because the principal was appointed to Annapolis. So I put in a request to go to the Citadel.
Okay.
I went to the Citadel for
Nice.
a year.
Nice.
And then at the end of that year, almost the end of that year, I got a call from my congressman.
And
said,
is this around 1959, 1960?
Yes, exactly. And I got a call from my congressman who said, I've been watching your grades and you've done great. And so do you want to go to the military academy? Well, the dilemma was I had spent 1 year as what they call then a knob, which is the
Yep.
same thing as a plebe. And it was a pretty tough year at the Citadel because they were pretty tough then.
Yeah.
And so I said, if I hang up this phone, I'm never going to call back. So I said, yes, I'll take it. And so a month later, I started back at West Point, and of course, started as a plebe.
And you were a plebe, but this was your second year in college, though, correct?
But you had to start all over.
You had to start over.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I just want to be clear on that.
Yeah.
So basically, you're starting from scratch. You've already went through, for lack of a better word, a very tough first year, and now you're
Starting over.
starting fresh,
Yeah.
but at West Point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I finally made that goal.
Right. So you graduate from West Point, and you decide you want to go into special forces, or what brought you to starting to check the boxes?
Well, there was no special forces per se at that time.
Right.
There was the OSS, but that was history.
Right.
And so
And for the listeners, OSS stands for.
the Office of Strategic Services.
Yep. Correct.
And so there was Ranger School,
Right.
which I knew was a challenge. And
Do you think it's easier today than it was when you went through?
I'm not sure.
You heard that, didn't you, back there?
I think
He doesn't want to say. He doesn't want to answer that question.
right. And then I went through airborne school after that. But I got assigned to a mech infantry unit, which I was not too happy with because we spent a lot of time in the motor park, checking dipsticks and go to the field and ride around a little bit, come back. But I had an opportunity to be part of a guerrilla force as a training mission for special ops that were stationed in Bad Tölz, Germany, the 10th Group.
Okay, 10th Group.
Yeah. And so I really fell in love with SF then.
Right.
I knew that's what I wanted to do. And at that time, special forces were not held in high favor. So I submitted a request. And
when you say not held in high favor, meaning that the we'll call it the regular service,
right.
They would not push or promote to try to get you into the special forces.
Exactly.
It was the opposite.
Yeah.
Right. I just want to clarify for that.
In fact, I submitted a request for a transfer to 10th Group. And I got called in by my battalion commander, first company commander, and he said, this is the dumbest thing you could do. Because you're going to ruin your career.
And you're about how old now? You're 23, 24 years old?
About 22.
Yeah, 22.
Yeah, 22. Yeah.
Okay, 22.
And then he said, I'm going to send you up to the battalion commander because I'm not going to approve this thing. So if he disapproved it, you'd have to go up the chain.
Right.
So I went into the battalion commander. He was a West Point grad too, and he said, "This is not good. I'm going to disapprove it, but I'm going to send you to the brigade commander." So
Okay.
Here I am, a second lieutenant, and I'm standing before a full colonel, which was at that time God.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And
I mean, maybe still, right? I mean, maybe not for you sitting here, but
well, I got a good lecture
Yeah.
and how terrible this was. But in the meantime, what I had done while this process was going on, I went down for an interview to 10th Group. And at that time, the group commanders had a lot of authority. And not that they don't now, but they had a lot of
Yeah,
authority then.
more like full authority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I got interviewed. I spoke Italian because I was Italian, and
Right.
we spoke it at home.
Did you go to language school for Italian, or no, you just knew it?
No, I knew it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
grew up with it.
Yeah.
I didn't know it then, but it was a dialect.
Yeah.
It
Do you
wasn't
guys,
really.
any of you know Italian back there? Yeah, language school.
So much later, they sent me to school when I was a brigadier, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, but no.
Yeah, we'll get there later.
Yeah.
So you're speaking Italian.
Yeah, and I was Ranger qualified, and of course Airborne qualified.
Right.
And so they said, the group commander said, "We'll accept you, and we'll try and make this thing happen." Well, about a month or a month and a half later, Vietnam was really picking up, and I got orders for 10th Group.
This is around 64, 65.
Yes.
Yeah.
65.
65.
65, yeah.
I'm doing good with my dates today.
You're doing real good. Better than me.
Well, it's because we're on a ship and we're moving. You know, that's the Coast Guard in me.
Yeah. So, anyway, I didn't go through the Q course, the qualification course.
Okay.
Cause
You did not.
No, I did not.
Okay.
There was a provision then that if you were in a group and your group commander, after 6 months, determined that you were well enough qualified, he could tab you.
So, I mean, isn't that something to, like, I mean, I don't want to say, I'm sure someone listening and saying, well, that's kind of BS. He didn't have to go through the Q course. But then I think there's going to be other listeners that are going to go, you had your shit so together that you didn't have to go to the Q course.
Well, I was lucky. That's the way
You were
I
lucky?
look at it.
The modesty, you were lucky. Yeah, okay. I'll give you that one.
Ironically, I was assigned to a Czechoslovakian team,
Okay.
and I learned all about safe houses and
Right.
and doing guerrilla warfare, but not counter guerrilla warfare.
Okay.
And then I got orders for Vietnam, and I said, well, I haven't been through the course, so how do you do this counter guerrilla stuff? I know I've learned from my teammates and everything how to do that,
Right.
but I know nothing about counter guerrilla. So, well, it's very simple.
It's the opposite.
Just the opposite.
It's the opposite.
That's exactly what they said.
Yeah. You're qualified.
So I deployed and ended up on an 8 detachment, and the detachment commander had just been killed, and so I took his place. And
Shoes to follow, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and it was just the opposite. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't have any problems with that, which I thought I would.
And how long were you over in Vietnam?
Well, that first tour was 1 year.
1 year.
Yeah,
And you did multiple tours there?
I did another one in '72.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you were there at the beginning and then kind of towards the
the very end. Yeah,
very end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the beginning was very rewarding. I thought we were making progress,
Right.
and I had a camp of 600 Vietnamese and lowland cham, and which is a Chinese variant, and we had very successful operations.
Right. And you're a Green Beret
Right.
while you're there.
Yes.
Then how long were you a Green Beret at this point?
Well, by that time I was probably a Green Beret for, I would say, maybe 13, 14 months, just a little over a year.
Yeah. So kind of, a newbie,
Yeah.
and then you're in charge of a team,
Right.
and your first real operational work is Vietnam.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we writing a book or no? Are we going to write a book?
I wrote. I wrote.
I mean, I'm just saying, right? I'm just saying.
I wrote a novel from my grandkids.
Right.
just so they would learn from some of the lessons that I learned from,
Right.
and some were mistakes.
Well, that's how we learn lessons, right? We make mistakes, we learn from them, and the trick is just not to do those same errors again, right?
You hope that they're not just observed lessons, but that
Correct.
you learn from them, and from the experiences as well.
Right.
And so
we leave. We're due our second tour in Vietnam, which is 72, 73. You said.
yes,
And then so
72.
we leave.
All of 72.
Yeah. So we're there. So we spend about 24 months in country, in a obviously a combat war situation, and now you leave. You come back to the U.S. We're in 73, the year I was born, March 9th. Because I know your son's born March 26th? 27th. Oh, I was close. So now you're back in the U.S., and then what's next?
Well, let me cap the end of that tour.
Okay, yes, for
Because
sure.
we had a very successful camp, so I was pulled up to be the S3 for the C detachment, which is 2 levels higher,
And what does S3 mean?
operations officer.
Correct.
So we had that detachment, that C detachment, had oversight over 23 camps. So I got to see a little bit of the operational level of command rather than just the tactical level, which paid off in the long run. I mean, that was a very valuable experience. I finished that tour with a combat jump into a place called Boo Prang.
One more time, the name of the place?
Boo Prang.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right along the border. It was an infiltration route, and they wanted to put a camp there to deter that infiltration. And the S2 that was the intelligence officer and me were the only ones that ever recon the drop zone.
Okay.
So it was pretty interesting.
And this is the second tour.
No, this is the first tour.
It's
The
first
end of
tour.
the first tour.
Okay, the end of the first tour, and that's when you said the first tour was better for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the second tour, I went in as a MAG-V advisor and military assistance group advisor,
Right.
and I was an advisor for the regional force and popular force province level headquarters. And I was, again, the advisor for the S3 operations because that was pretty much my field. And I had a interesting tour there in that my primary duty was really putting in arc lights, B-52 strikes. So a cav package would come and pick me up in the morning. I'd go do the reconnaissance for where we were going to target and make sure it was clear to civilians and an appropriate target. And then
And who was guiding you with direction on that?
I would get the intelligence from the province level headquarters, but nobody was really guiding me on where to go.
Right.
So I had a number of intelligence targets that I had to sort of sort out and determine which one was the most appropriate. Then I'd go in the afternoon after the strike and do a bomb damage assessment to see how successful it was. And I did primarily that for the entire tour, and I would follow the province chief around in a Jeep and take his advice as to where he thought air power was needed. And those were calling it just conventional strikes. And on one of those little tours, one of those little journeys, I was ambushed
Okay.
and made it out alive, but it was a pretty difficult ambush. And that ended that tour.
And how many people were you with when you guys got ambushed?
I was in a Jeep with the Vietnamese driver, and again, the S2, the intelligence, because I always carried an intelligence officer with me.
Right.
And
This way, if they give you bad intel, you can blame it on them right away. You're like, you're right here with me.
yeah.
What the hell are we doing here, people? This isn't good intel at all.
Yeah. Well, I was following the province chief very closely because
Right.
we knew we were in a hot zone, and he was in the V100 commando vehicle,
Okay.
which is an armored vehicle, but I had very little protection from any sort of fire. And my theory was, or my thought was, if we did get caught in an ambush, I could just snuggle up behind that V100 and make it through.
Right.
Well, it didn't work because I got a B-40 round right in the radiator, killed the driver, blew us in the rice paddy, and we essentially had to get back on the road and run back probably about 1.5 miles or 2 miles to get away from the ambush itself,
Yeah.
the ambush site. And then my tour ended after that sometime later.
And so you make it out alive, obviously, because you're here to tell the story, and we are going to push you to write a book. So you make it out, and you come back to the U.S. And what station are you at this point?
Let's see. I got assigned to Fort Polk, Louisiana,
Okay.
and I'm wondering whether I should tell this story.
You can. They're not listening. Wink, wink.
So
Your lovely wife's over there, and she's like, wait a minute.
She knows she's.
I better not hear something I don't want to hear. How long have you been married? You said 60 years. She's like, this is it. It all ended on the cruise ship in 2024.
Anyway, I felt pretty desperate because I knew Fort Polk, Louisiana was not a choice assignment. And
Right.
I knew I'd be pushing troops, training troops. It was an individual infantry basic course. I'd be pushing troops to Vietnam.
Right.
And it had a horrible reputation. So I wrote my wife and said, do whatever you can to get me out of this assignment.
And this is your current wife today.
Right.
That's here. That's here. Just want to make sure. Yeah. Only wife. Only wife. Let's pause for 1 second. So how old were you when you guys got married?
22, I think. Yeah, 22.
Yeah. And where did you guys meet?
Well, we grew up together, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, we grew up together.
So you married your best friend.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Just want. She's like, I don't know if we were best friends. Okay.
Oh, she was a good flirt.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I can see it with her eyes. All right. Okay. So we're in Louisiana.
Yeah. And so, no, not yet.
Oh, okay.
Because she followed my advice and plea. And so she didn't mess around at the lower level. She wrote the president and described how, I really had a little hay fever and this would be bad for me. and
Is this real? Tell me you got a reply.
there were a couple other corny excuses, but amazingly enough, my C detachment commander, who was a lieutenant colonel, called me in, and he also knew my wife Ruth, and he said,
Ruth's a rock star.
"Yeah." He says,
I've got a feeling about that.
he said, "I don't know what Ruth's been doing, but
Just writing to the president.
Yeah.
Just hanging out.
right, but here's the letter she wrote, and you're going to write the response." So I had to write the response.
Are you seriously?
Yeah, no, that was it. So it was Lieutenant Colonel Fastenheimer. His nickname was Blue Max, and he was a legend in Special Forces at that time. And he was actually the one that approved me going to Special
Don't you love when a legend says someone else is a legend? Yeah. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
So anyway, I ended up going.
Yeah. Yeah, the hay fever didn't get you out.
No. And I couldn't even claim hay fever.
Yeah.
It wasn't that serious. And I couldn't tell a lie, especially in writing.
Yeah.
So anyway, ended up in Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Okay.
Which ended up being a good tour.
Right. And how long were you down there for?
3 years.
And so you leave. You're there for 3 years. This is in between the first tour and the second tour of Vietnam. Yeah. So you leave.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So you leave. Yeah. So you leave Louisiana and then you deploy to Vietnam again, or you go somewhere else?
I went to graduate school.
Okay.
Yeah, at Alabama, University of Alabama.
Shout out to Alabama.
And also, I went to some reason I went to the Armor Career Course. I don't know why. But,
right.
We didn't really have a branch, an SF branch then.
Right.
And so I was still under infantry branch's control.
Right.
And they wanted to get somebody with some cross experience in the other branches and sent me to the armor school, which was interesting.
Right. So then you go from there back to Vietnam.
Yeah.
And you do 12 months in Vietnam again.
Right.
Yep. And how was that tour?
Well.
And what rank are you at this point?
I'm still a major.
Okay.
Yeah. And let's see, it was during that tour that I got promoted to, let's see, I think it was that tour that I got promoted to lieutenant colonel. But I was, as a MAGB advisor, wasn't quite a rewarding tour at all. It was pretty sad because we put in tons of airstrikes and couldn't really see the progress on the ground.
Right.
And knew that we were at best in a stalemate. And that's where we lost popular favor. And, we just lost political support and popular support. And when I came back, I actually experienced people spitting on us.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't appreciated at all, and we were the bad guys there,
right,
rather than the good guys.
Right.
At the end of the first tour, we were good guys still.
So you got to witness coming back, and you're a hero for the first.
I wasn't a hero, no.
Well, in the eyes of the public, and then your second tour, you're coming back, and you're demonized. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, but that didn't stop you. You still stayed in the military, and you continued with an extremely successful career. But you're back in the U.S. after the second tour. You're treated like shit, and you're like, you know what? This is what we're doing for our country.
Yeah.
And so, and then what happens?
Well, I hung in there because I still, I guess the main thing that attracted me to the military is there's always a challenge there.
Yeah.
You know.
100%.
Yeah. And I like the people that I was working with. I've never been in a unit that I disliked the people that I was working with. I always felt that, we were, a team trying to do the right thing. And so that was enough for me to continue to be motivated.
Right.
Yeah.
So after so now we're back in the U.S. and you said you were a major?
Yeah, I was still a major then.
Still a major?
Yeah.
And then, so what was your next deployment or your next tour? Or walk me through that.
Well, I had to have a utilization tour for the masters that I got.
Right.
The normal sequence is you get a 2-year utilization tour. Well, I had a master's in business.
And for the listeners, a utilization tour is
an assignment where you can use what you learn.
Right.
And be productive.
Yeah.
Well, ironically, I was signed back to the military academy as a tactical officer, which is essentially a counselor.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Did you like that?
no, it was tough.
He started to say yeah. He's like, I can't lie. He's like, absolutely hated it.
Everybody else liked it, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And the only reason I really didn't like it is that it was quite demanding. I mean, you have a group of a constituency there that is, very bright, very inquisitive, and very conservative in terms of what they think about the military. And essentially, you have to motivate them, and you have to weed out those that don't make the mark.
Right.
So,
which is a lot more than less.
yeah. So it was trying in that regard. It was you had to interview every cadet at least 3 times a year and deal with that and try and counsel them to take the right path. And those that are having trouble, you got to interview them more and counsel them more directly. And then again, if they don't make the mark,
you got to weed out the weak.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that pretty much consumed the week in terms of time. And then on the weekend is the only time you could see really cadets function as a teammate. And you see there whether or not they've got some leadership ability, whether they've got talent, whether they're physically strong or not. And so you're pretty much obligated to spend the weekends observing at least some of your cadets,
right,
in a team function, athletic function.
Right. So when we're talking full-time job, we're talking full-time job.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like literally around the clock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And mentally exhausting. Too.
Right. And you did that for 2 years?
Yes. Yeah. And then I took command of a battalion in 7th Group.
Yeah. No big deal. Just took command of battalion. Say that again?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. One of my cadets was General McChrystal.
Okay.
I don't know whether you've read anything about
Yeah.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, I think 98% of this ship knows who that is. Yeah. The 2% is the staff that's working here. Yeah.
But what was interesting about that, I don't think he's written a book on it too. Is that?
Oh, he wrote a book?
Yeah, or 2. But he was in trouble when I got there. He was
okay.
He was a little bit of a rabble rouser, and
what'd you say, a rebel rouser?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, he did some things that were not appreciated by the tactical officers and the academia as well. And so I had to sort of try and counsel him to put him on the right path. I essentially looked at his performance report, not his performance reports, but his, we had peer ratings.
Yeah,
then.
peer ratings, yep.
Yeah. And he had outstanding peer ratings. I mean, in every respect, even in his rebel activities.
Right.
And so I tried to turn that around and say, you're setting a positive example, but it's in the wrong direction. So try and turn that around, because you could do much better.
Right. You were guiding him.
Yeah.
Follow me.
Yeah. And so, surprisingly enough, many years later, I found out that he credited me with making that turn.
Nice. That's got to make you feel good, though, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's made me feel good.
Yeah. Yeah, I can tell.
And well, we're still in touch with each other. He also ended up serving in my battalion as a detachment commander.
Okay.
He was in the 82nd, and he came to see me when I was battalion commander. Said, I'm not too happy over here. I hear about special forces, but it still wasn't in favor.
Right.
In fact, we were actually winding down at that point because it was after the war, and you always downsize special forces or try to downsize it after the war.
Right.
The conventional forces would.
Yeah.
And so I thought it'd still be good for him. And he came over, and like I said, he was a detachment commander. From there, he went to stardom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love that he actually recognized and gave you credit that's well deserved.
Yeah.
But it's not that it's lost on, just a forgotten, because at the end of the day, when you can mentor someone or you can make a positive change in their life from your actions, and then you can see them later succeed in whatever they're doing, you can look back and go, that's rewarding.
Yeah.
That you can appreciate that, right? When they recognize that was a pivotal point in their career or in their life that either got them on track or got them to make that decision, whether it was consciously or not, that they decide they're like, you know what, this is what I have to do, and I give credit to Dave because of this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
And
pretty cool. It's like real cool.
The only reason I can talk about it is he wrote about it in his book. So
Right.
he made it public.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Okay, so now where are we at in your career at this point?
This is getting to be a long story.
No. You know what? Here's the cool thing about this. We've got hours of recording time. Yeah. And so you can make this story as short as you want or as long as you want, but I'm listening, and I know the listeners are going to enjoy it. So keep telling.
Okay, where do we go from there? Where was I? Commanding a battalion.
Yeah, you were
right?
commanding the battalion.
Oh, from there,
And just to be clear, 35 years, right?
right,
35 years?
right about.
Yeah. 34 years, 11 months, 23 days.
Right.
Did you guys hear that? I said 35 years, and he goes, yeah, about that. I go 34 years, 11 months, 23 days. He goes, yeah, just like that. But hey, no one's keeping track. Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's see. I went to the War College.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Actually, one of my friends, Stoner, just finished. So he's a reservist. He just finished. It took 2 years, I believe, for him to go to War College. And he said it was the hardest, most miserable 2 years of his career. And he's an extremely intelligent guy, super, has his shit together, for lack of a better word. I can't say it anymore, but and I just ran into him the other night at a restaurant before we just got underway. And I just, hey, congratulations, your brother told me you completed, War College. And I go, how was it? And I was expecting, he's like, oh yeah, it was fun, it was great. And he said it was absolutely the hardest thing he's done in his career.
Really?
Yeah. And you're gonna say it was easy, no problem. Just like.
I guess I passed. So it was no problem. And I'm not the brightest guy on earth either.
Okay,
So
sure.
I was happy that it was not a challenge. I mean, I think graduate school was a greater challenge.
Really?
And West Point was even harder than that.
Right. Yeah.
But, yeah.
So you finished War College and
got assigned to Korea.
Okay.
And I was in charge of plans there.
Strategic planning?
Yes. Well, actually, operational level planning for the theater.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
For in theater.
Yeah, for in theater. So
Right.
only the Korean War plan.
Right.
And about, I think, a year and a half into that, I got orders to reestablish the first group.
Right. And this is the coin you have, your challenge coin in your pocket.
Right.
Which, by the way, is 001. Yeah. He just laughs it off. Actually, would you mind taking it out of your pocket? Yeah, I've got mine on me, so you're not gonna get me. But I actually just. But I want to. just show the camera this, and I'll see if I can get a zoom in. Yeah, I mean, I got nothing to say, right? You know? Yeah. Well done. Yeah. Continue. Okay. I'm at a loss for words, and and I can tell you, my wife will tell you that never happens.
So anyway,
I'm gonna put my coin back in my pocket. I'm gonna take my ball and go home.
So anyway, I get these orders, and I don't really know what it's about. You know. So
okay.
You're assigned to actually Fort Lewis, and not a lot of guidance there about what I'm going to do. So I arrive at Fort Lewis, and I have no office. I have no flag to report to. So I go into the post commander, and that was General Brandenburg then, and he gave me an office up in North Fort, which were abandoned World War II billets.
Okay.
You know, and said, well, you can hang out up there, and we'll provide some phone service for you, and so forth. So, first thing I try to do is get back to Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty.
It's Fort Bragg. That's fine. It's Fort Bragg. Sorry. It's Fort Bragg. That's it. Yeah.
And reported to the SOC commander there, the ASOC commander, and that was General Lutz. And,
General Lutz?
Yes. And I thought I'd get some guidance there, you know, on how to establish a group.
Right, yeah.
I had no
All
idea.
he's asking for is guidance. His 35 years of career. He's like, just trying to get a little help from somebody. No, you've got it. Exactly. You'll figure it out. Exactly. You're good.
And
War college was easy. Okay, yeah, sure.
The only thing that he really lectured me on.
Sorry, I'm still. Okay, continue.
He lectured me on making sure that we had high standards.
Okay.
Physically, you know, morally,
right, and
mentally, you know, high standards.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to send you volunteers.
That didn't fall on deaf ears. I'm sure you were already on that. Yeah.
And so he started to send volunteers to the first group, and the rest I had to sort of figure out myself, because I actually had no mission letter that tells you what your group is going to be responsible for. He said, well, you know, you can give us a draft on that. So,
sure. I'll whip that up right now.
How do you give a draft on a theater mission that you are not even really familiar with the theater?
Right.
So I started.
And how long are you there at this point? You're
at that point I had been there maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah. So you have tons of experience. 2 weeks, 14 full days. Yeah. You got all the knowledge.
So I said, well, the first thing I'm going to have to do is get out in the Pacific and see what's there, because I knew nothing about PACOM, and I didn't know anything about Korea. Well, I did know about Korea. That was the only theater that I knew about. But so I traveled around the theater, went to Indonesia, went to Thailand. And
how did you like Indonesia?
It was sort of unremarkable.
Yeah.
You know.
I spent a couple years in East Timor.
Really?
And yeah, which was actually, as we talked about prior to the show, which was owned by Indonesia. They were at war for a long time. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time in Indonesia, in the Indonesian region. The food is good. I got nothing else. It's hot, humid. Yeah. Wet season sucks. Dry season sucks.
As I recall, the ambassador who I went to visit in these places had no real requirement that he was eager to get special forces.
Right.
So I went to Thailand too, and this is the same time frame, same journey really, and
Bangkok.
Yeah. Bangkok, and the ambassador there said he didn't want anything to do with special forces.
Of course. Yeah.
Although, we had first group had a company there.
No one wants special forces until they need them, and then they're like, shit. What? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I finally talked the ambassador into having one detachment over there to do a med ready, a medical mission.
Yeah, medical mission.
Yeah.
Right.
Up in Chiang Mai.
Chiang Mai.
Yeah, it was
Yep.
way up north.
Yeah.
And talked him into that. And then,
Where actually dog is a delicacy. Yeah, it's not a joke. It's real. Yeah. 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 Typically on holidays.
and so that worked out well because he was interested in that and saw the benefit from it. And before we knew it, we ended up with an annual exercise there called Cobra Gold. I think it might still be going on.
Cobra Gold.
Cobra Gold.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys ramped that up. You started that.
Yeah, we ramped that up to battalion size.
It's just the little things. Yeah.
So that worked out well.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, when the troops started folding in, the first group of troops that I got were fresh out of airborne school,
Okay.
and they were support personnel. So they all went to the support battalion. I had a support battalion that was fully fleshed out, but no equipment.
Right. And probably no funding as well, but that's another story, right? Oh, here's some duct tape. You guys got this.
Yeah. So I'll tell you one funny story. You can edit it out.
No, we're not going to edit it out.
But actually, my wife and I, because there was nobody else around, ended up cleaning out the barracks, the one barracks that I had as an office. And we had cardboard boxes to serve as desks. I did have telephone service, so I could at least make telephone calls to get more assistance. And I was out mowing the lawn one day, and these support troops came in, and they were not special forces qualified.
Right.
They were airborne qualified.
Yeah.
And one passing by, came up to me and says, "Hey, I'm signing in the Special Forces Group, First Special Forces Group. They're Green Berets, and I don't see any around here. Can you tell me where the headquarters is?"
He's mowing the lawn.
Yeah. I said, "Well, I think the group commander's in there." And so I pointed to my office there.
And were you in there cleaning? That would have been great.
So I went around the back door and came in, and you should have seen his eyes.
Oh, yeah. 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 Can only imagine.
And his mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. It's on the floor. Your chin's on the floor. Pick it up.
So and we started from that. The rest went pretty well. I mean,
Side note, that individual that happened. So, how was his career with you after that?
oh gosh.
Or just
he was lost in
yeah,
class.
yeah. I kind of thought that was going to be the answer. Yeah.
I got helicopters in then, and I had requested those specially, and it was sort of a test phase where we had never, Special Forces had never deployed their helicopters outside of the regimental task force.
Because this is way before 160th, right?
Yes.
I'm making an assumption.
Yep. Yes.
Do you know when 160th started?
After Desert Eagle and after the Ron, so I don't think they stood up really till the early 80s.
Yeah, I was gonna say because
Yeah.
the leadettes in the Coast Guard I think was 82, and I feel like the 160th was around that time.
I would guess 85, somewhere around
85,
there.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're getting the
Got the helicopters.
Get the helicopters
and,
in.
Again, I had no frame of reference for that, but I did have a great detachment there of 5 helicopters. I think it was 5 Pablos. And no, Blackhawks.
Someone last night was telling me that they're getting rid of the Blackhawks. Was that a drunk guy talking? It has to be, right?
Yeah, I haven't heard, but I don't stay up with that position.
Yeah.
I don't think anytime soon.
Okay. Yeah.
So I knew no boundaries on how to use those helicopters. So one of the first things we did was
Can you fly a helicopter too?
no, I
You know he probably can. He's like, well, I mean, I don't have a license, but
Task Force 160 founded in 1981.
1981. Okay.
81.
Yeah. All right. That makes sense. Thank you. So we got fact checkers here.
Yeah. Good support group.
Good support group. Yeah.
They're responsible for a lot more.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
So you get.
So
yeah.
I knew no boundaries. So I said, well, why don't we deploy somewhere? We deployed to Alaska as, the detachment.
And we're in Alaska.
Yeah.
Anchorage.
No, Fort Greely.
Oh, okay.
Fort Greely.
Yeah.
It was a mountain warfare school.
Yeah. Mountain
up
warfare.
there.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
I lived in
did it
I lived in Kodiak for a little while.
Oh.
Yeah.
You've been around.
Yeah, I have. not as much as you.
That's why you're doing this.
Yeah.
So I said that was quite successful.
Yeah.
And so I asked for permission, which I seldom did. Asked for permission to deploy to Hawaii.
What you're saying, ask for forgiveness, do it, and that. What is the saying? Ask for forgiveness, do it, and ask for forgiveness, as opposed to
As opposed to asking for permission and being denied.
being denied, right?
Yeah. And so we deployed to Hawaii, and we had an operation over there with the Navy SEALs. Lasted about a month long. I said, God, we made
And that's
it
SEAL.
here."
That's SEAL Detachment 1, I think,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
SEAL Group 1.
Yeah.
And then about a year later, I said, well, let's try and deploy from there to Japan. So we went from Hawaii to Japan. I actually ran a circuit to Thailand and back. So we integrated the helicopters into Cobra Gold and came back. After all that, decision was made they're going to take the detachment back.
Right.
That didn't happen till a couple years later, but I was always disappointed that the proof of concept that I tried to demonstrate was demonstrated, and it was demonstrated well, because they said you're never going to be able to maintain those helicopters outside of the Fort Lewis immediate perimeter.
Right.
But we found contract groups out there that we were able to do routine maintenance on.
Right.
Either service-wise or other Department of Defense contractors out there that could work on helicopters and were licensed and all that. So that was a little bit disappointing, but I think that's probably all those helicopters were migrated to the task force.
Right.
Task Force 160.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Were you guys using little birds then?
I didn't have any little birds.
No. Those things are wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. That's all I got. Those things are wild.
Yeah. No, that's one thing I haven't done.
So you finished that. Where are you at in your career at this point?
Well, I was lucky enough I had 180 days to get the group operational, and we had a RTEP at that point to test our readiness, and we actually made it in less than 180 days. So in a half year, we got the group fully organized and operationally ready. So that was a pretty good accomplishment.
Yeah, it's a huge accomplishment. Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to be able to command because of that preparatory period. I claimed, well, that's not really command.
Because what are the groups? You've got 5th group, 1st group,
Seven.
7th group, and then 20th is the reserve
Reserve.
battalion.
What other groups?
Did I?
No third at that time.
No third. Yeah.
No third, but not so.
10th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But isn't it? I mean, and for you, because you're just sitting here so modest, to sit here on a cruise filled with special forces. You know, there's 2,000 people on this ship right now, approximately, plus or minus. I didn't do a head count, and to know that you started, you ramped up first group. I mean, I don't know.
But I didn't ramp it up. I mean, I had a fantastic team. I mean,
Absolutely.
remember, they were all volunteers.
Yes.
And the first thing I'd tell them when they arrived is, whatever standards you're used to, you know.
Yeah.
We have new standards here.
Right.
You're going to help establish the standards.
Yeah.
And we're going to maintain them.
Yeah. You're gonna mow the grass if I need you to.
Yeah. So we did. We had a hell of a, and the Olympics was going on then. I don't know which one, but so I sort of got enamored with this lifestyle, Olympic lifestyle, where they have 2 workouts a day at least.
Right.
And usually they're working out, all day long.
Right.
And so we had 2 PT formations, one in the morning and one in the afternoon.
Later afternoon.
Yeah. Now, the later one was volunteer, but, who was not going to
Highly recommended. Yeah. Volunteered, but highly recommended. Yeah.
And so that worked.
I mean, you don't have to do it, but you do.
It was sort of the group think at that.
Right.
So that was that.
Yeah.
And after that, I went back to the ASOC, where I was, again, the operations officer.
Right.
And got a call from General Lindsay one day, who said, he had just arrived at MacDill to start up the Special Operations Command. But he had, all his staff was from the old Redcom staff that was down there. So they were all conventional force people.
Right.
So he said, I need somebody to come down here. I'll give you a door-to-door move. And I need you to write, number 1, an operational concept.
An operational concept.
Yeah.
Right.
And number 2, a requirements process. So we can establish requirements.
Like a minimum standard.
Yeah.
Right. Which is
No, the requirements in terms of funding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
And do you have any experience in writing this up?
no.
No.
Well, operations-wise, I did.
Throwing that out there again. Yeah. Just saying. Yeah.
So anyway, that was a good tour.
Yeah.
Very productive. And General Lindsay was a great guy to work for. And he frocked me to BG and said, I want you to go down there and command SWIC.
Yeah.
Special Warfare Center,
Yeah.
which I enjoyed.
So you were the commander at SWIC?
Yeah, for 4 years.
Yeah, okay.
Which was a record. I kept trying to get deployed, but
I'm just saying, where's the book? The book can be called Classified.
I wish I were a better typer.
I'll hook you up with a collaborator who wrote my book with me, Robert Conlon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. You tell the story. He puts it all together for you. Faster fingers than me.
So anyway, one of the things I had to do when he sent me down there, I want you to get integrated in the Army, because special ops and special operations forces were sort of seen as separate.
Right.
He said, I want you to maintain that allegiance with and affiliation with the Army, with your branch, and also I want you to and join and work with the Navy SEALs, and we'll try and get the Marine Corps in here too.
Right.
We did that with General Lindsay. I went to.
You brought the Marines in with crayons.
Well, we tried to get them in. General Lindsay did.
Yeah.
And I remember we went out there and gave him, who was it? General Gray?
What was that?
Marine Corps Commandant then, Commandant of the Marine Corps. Gray? Was it Gray? Anyway, we briefed him, and he wasn't excited at all. He said, "No, all my Marines are special ops."
Yeah.
So we failed at that. But later on, I guess they're in now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a component now.
Marsac.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Yeah, there's a lot of Marines that weren't happy when that got created because, you know, the Marines, everyone who's a Marine is like, you know, we're already the elite. And so then finally, after however many years, they created Marsac. And then, you know, the Marines that have been saying for years that we are all special. We all are special operations or special forces. And now they have an elite unit within their organization. So, yeah, I know there was some people that were definitely disgruntled about that, to say the least. Yeah.
So anyway, while I was there, we actually came up with the soft imperatives. And again, you know, my staff, you know, and I got those into the doctrine. And I don't know whether you're familiar with the soft imperatives.
Yeah.
And they're still there, as far as I know.
And you and your staff created them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Worked hard on that for a long while, because the thing that brought that about is the first time that I went to a TRADOC meeting, which was General Thurman commanded at that time. I was a school commandant, so, you know, we'd have a school commandant conference meeting, and they were talking about principles of warfare and all that.
Right.
And, at the end of a roundtable session, at the conclusion of this first big conference that we had, everybody could make their closing comments. You know. So my closing comments then were, you know, I don't think the principles of warfare apply to, you know, insurgent operations or to irregular warfare. And I think we ought to look for an alternative there, because, you know, mass and a lot of the principles of war don't apply.
Correct.
So we came up with the soft imperatives. But before that, at the end of that conference, I was the only one star at the table. The rest of the commandants, we had 17 different school branches at that time. The rest of them were all 2 stars. And so General Thurman said, "General Baratto, I want you to look down at your collar and tell me how many stars you see."
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously, he said that. And so I looked down and I said,
Yeah, you did a double check.
1 star, sir. And he said, "Well, you come back a couple of years later. Right now, I'm going to give you a duly noted."
Yeah, duly noted. I got you. Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe in a couple of years.
Thanks
come
for the
back
thanks for
here.
the ribbon.
Yeah. Maybe in a couple of years you can come back here and I could give you a recognized, you know.
Yeah.
So it worked. I waited. I had 4 years at the school, so we got that done.
Nice.
Yeah. The other thing that I think was significant is we broke our language program away from DLI,
And DLI was.
Defense Language Institute.
Yep. Okay.
And the reason for that was that the language training out there was really mainly training interception, and we wanted a conversational language that would have military vocabulary.
Correct.
And vernacular. So it took a little while, but we got that.
Is that how Monterey started?
No, that was in Monterey.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that
DLI
wasn't.
was in Monterey.
Yeah.
We brought it back
Yeah.
to Brad with it.
Okay.
Emphasis on practice.
Yeah, so just to clarify, because I don't think the microphone could hear you, so it was in Monterey. You brought it back to Bragg.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Glad you guys are here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's my team.
That's the team. It's the A team.
We get shit done.
Every day. Every day, get shit done.
So that was.
Yeah. So what do you think, if you look back in your career?
The other thing.
Okay.
One more thing.
Take your time.
We started the selection assessment program then too. I think general guest.
Oh, yeah, one more thing. How did I forget that?
Yeah, that
Do
was,
90% of the people that are on the ship know him?
no.
Do they know? I should say, do 90% of the people on the ship know he's on the ship? I should say. They're walking by, and they have no idea.
All the first group and SWIC guys, though,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Special forces are silent professionals. It's either the gray man or gray woman,
Yeah.
or you hide in the crowd.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when you're needed, you come out.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's just sliding by from aft to the stern.
His medic spotted him. Ask him about when his medic spotted him on this cruise.
Okay, so your medic spotted you on the cruise?
Yeah.
referring back to Vietnam days now.
Oh, the bungee spike.
What about it, Carla?
Well, tell your medic.
What about the punji steak or what? Well, anyway,
That was an everyday get shit done. Every day.
Yeah.
so I didn't recognize this guy, and he said, "Hey, sir, remember me? I was your medic, and
He was your medic in Vietnam.
yeah, in Vietnam.
Okay.
At the A detachment.
Okay.
A camp."
Okay.
It says the one thing I always remember about you is that when you drove your Jeep up one time, we were on an operation. You drove your Jeep up and you got out and you stepped on a punji steak. And it was a steel punji steak. And all you said was, "Son of a bitch." He said you took your foot off the punji steak and kept going.
Truly, everyday GSD. Truly. Yeah. Yeah. Did you know he was going to be on the ship?
No, I didn't
No.
know that.
Yeah.
I only know about 3 people on this ship.
Yeah.
This whole ship.
Yeah. Well, they know your name. I can tell you that. That's for sure. Yeah. So looking back at your career, what's the one thing you can say that was your biggest highlight that you're and I'm sure you just told us a bunch, right? So, but one that you can look back and go, you know what, this is going to continue to be a legacy in the armed forces for the United States of America, and I'm proud that I was able to do that.
Well, I think reactivating the first group.
Reactivating first group. Yeah, I thought that's what you were going to say, but I wanted to highlight that because we make reels with these podcasts, and that's going to be one right there for sure. Yeah. Looking back, is there anything that you regret?
Not that I can think of.
Not that you can think of.
No.
Looking at the younger generation today, a young 19-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid coming out of high school, getting ready to go to college or going to a trade school, decides he wants to go in the military, and he sits down with you. What's your advice to him or her?
You mean when they don't have any idea what they're doing?
Correct.
Well,
Yeah.
I try this with my grandkids all the time. So far, I haven't been successful. Gotta keep trying.
I'm going to keep trying.
There are a couple of possibilities out there that are on the road,
Yeah.
and maybe they'll work.
Yeah.
No, I just the advice I give them is that be all you can be, you know.
Yeah.
And follow your ambitions,
Right.
follow your dreams,
Yeah.
and never believe in a naysayer, because
Yeah.
all my counselors in high school told me West Point was going to be too difficult,
Yeah.
and I didn't really have the personality for it, because
Right.
I was pretty mild mannered, and which I'm really not now. I don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, they tried to discourage me.
Right.
And if I hadn't had that role model, and I did have one wood shop instructor who was contrary to all that. I was just going to enlist in the Navy,
Right.
and he grabbed me and said, "No," he said, "you don't want to do that. You want to try and go to Annapolis, and I think you can make it." And I had a lot of respect for him. He was a great instructor, just not only a wood shop instructor, but he would advise you in a very indirect way.
Yeah.
He was a counselor,
Yeah.
but he wasn't my official.
I feel like when I was in we had metal shop and wood shop. I don't even think they even do that anymore in schools, because it's dangerous. But I feel like some of those instructors were the ones that you got the best lessons from, and it wasn't about how to cut the wood or how to weld something. It was life lessons, that they, and just meeting you for over the last hour and 10 minutes, and you said you didn't want to talk for more than 20 minutes, but I knew I could keep you on the mic here. But the amount of people that you've affected their lives in a positive way, I'm sure are much more than you can even fathom. You probably don't even realize the decisions that you've made and the career path that you've had while you've trained, coached, taught, and worked with individuals in the armed forces is huge.
Well,
Yeah.
I hope it is, but
Yeah, I'm pretty confident it is. Yeah. When the medic from Vietnam is on the ship with you and you haven't seen him since then, comes up to you and he still tells a story about you, I think we can say you're a true everyday GSD person, and you have been. But we've been at this for a little. We've been at this a little over an hour. I know you're a busy man, and we're going nowhere right now. Actually, we're floating out in the middle of the ocean. But last words for the audience about getting shit done. What is your advice to them? We were in an Uber driver I was with an Uber driver in Colorado, and we were on our way to do a shoot, and the Uber driver said, "Tie your shoes and fucking run." And I was like, right? When you think about that, a saying like that, you're like, tie your shoes and run. Like, stop making excuses. Stop complaining. Just stop, for lack of a better word, stop being a bitch and just do what you're supposed to do, right? You have a moral and an ethical code that you need to follow. And when you skip that, or you decide you don't want to do that, you're failing yourself and all the people around you. And you did 35 major general, almost 35 years in the armed forces, special forces, and to sit next to you on a podcast in the middle of the ocean right now, it's an honor.
well, thank you very much. I guess the advice I would give is that there are two ways to look at GSD. One is the everyday, on a personal basis, right? What do you do? But there's another aspect of it that is, if you're going to do anything significant, the first thing you have to do is build a team, because you're not going to get anything done by yourself. And you have to continue to manage that team. You have to continually network outside that team. And you have to leverage everything in your favor. So there's a lot of marketing that you have to do as well.
100%.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Yes. And that's your team right there. But I have a shirt for you, sir, because you are an everyday GSDer right here. Thank you again. It's an absolute honor. I appreciate you. We're going to do a couple pictures as soon as we get off the mic here, but thank you so much. I'm looking forward to having a drink with you on one of the 19 bars on the ship. Thank you.